No.
Is what we're thinking. So we're going to start it.
What are you going to do about that?
It's okay.
Okay.
He can be nominated.
All right.
I'd like to call this regular and annual organizational meeting of the East China School Board, Board of Education to order. If we could please rise for a moment of silence and pledge allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As this is the annual organizational meeting, we start first with Ms. Weglars, who will provide the oath of office for our board members.
I have 2 new board members. Do I have the time?
I think everybody.
We do it for everybody.
Yeah,
do
we
it
do it
for
for everybody. Yep.
Have you all stand?
Okay.
Have you all raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Michigan,
and the Constitution of the State of Michigan,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of this office,
the duties of this office,
a member of the Board of Education
a member of the Board of Education
of East China School District,
of East China School District,
St. Clair County, Michigan,
St. Clair County, Michigan,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
I'd like to welcome trustees Bebuck and Disselrath to the board. And now that there's a fully sworn-in Board of Education, I'd like to ask for nominations for the position of President of the Board of Education for the 2015 calendar year.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Jim Bewer.
Second? Mrs. Murphy supports. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Congratulations, President Bewer. And I will give you the gavel. We'll work on that. I'll go off camera and get this done. There we go.
And now open the office of Vice President. Nominations for position of Vice President. I nominate Glenn Kenigbauer.
I support.
Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So carried. Nominations for the position of treasurer is now open. I nominate Mr. Alan Richley.
With all due respect, I decline, Mr. Bewer, but thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay.
I nominate Amy Murphy.
I support. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. So carried. Position of secretary.
I'd like to nominate Jeannie Frank.
I support. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. So carried. Our slate of officers has been presented. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is items of interest, recognizing an inquiry. First off, Board of Education members, anything new? Mr. Richley.
I wanted to say that I went on the 17th to the Detroit Symphony Orchestra at the Performing Arts Center. It was really awesome, and I want to put a shout out to Mr. Simpson as well as the Marine City Music and Arts Festival for I was just very impressed. It was a very good event. Also, Pink Halo is coming up. The Pink Halo project on Saturday, January 31st at St. Clair High School, which raises money for the American Cancer Society, and I think that's a very important thing for our community, and thank our sports and athletics for putting that on. Also, on February 5th through the 7th at 7 o'clock, St. Clair High School's theater performance, Once Upon a Mattress, is going to be at the Performing Arts Center. And the last thing is, for announcements, is on the 21st, the ECSD Supporters Annual Chili Heart Run 5K is coming up, and you can find more information on their website, which is chiliheart5k.com. But a couple of things I brought up to Dr. Skalka today, which I'm just informing you of this. There's a marketing plan that's potentially going to be in the works, a plan to grow enrollment from student choice. And obviously it won't happen overnight, but I think that it should be a goal. And I also believe with proper planning and following through with marketing our district's points of pride, we could grow our enrollment or potentially break even. Also, at the next board meeting, I do plan to present a alternative revenue idea. A couple of ideas that I have, for instance, naming rights to the stadium, Performing Arts Center, school gymnasiums, and possible ads inside of school buses. I'll present these again at the next meeting with a PowerPoint. And also, there's a couple of things for board policy I wanted to bring up for discussion at our next meeting, and that is policy 4112 in regard to board staff communication. And I would also like board policy on 0144.1, which is on compensation of board members, which obviously we do not get. But I want the line saying board members shall receive $30 as compensation for each regular and special meeting attended, eliminated from that. And also, if somebody wants to go on a conference or something, I think it should come to the board first before we expend money on it. But that was all I had, so thank you.
Okay, just in follow up, just make sure the items that you wanted on the agenda.
Oh, email them.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? I just want to congratulate, again, the performing arts in all the schools, watching all of the Christmas. This is our first time back since Christmas, and all the holiday programs that were put on, and the singing and the quartets, and just phenomenal to sit and watch it on Channel 6. Thank you, Paul Dingeman, for allowing us to do that. And just wonderful, wonderful productions, and we thank you. Dr. Skalka.
Thank you. Trustee Ritchie took a few of them. I might add to them, but I have a few other ones. I want to commend Marine City High School and St. Clair High School for being 1 and 2 in the county in the recently released National Student Clearinghouse data for enrollment in 2- and 4-year colleges and universities by the most recent class of 2014. Congratulations are also in order for all the districts in St. Clair County for raising the county rate to 70%, which is 10 percentage points higher than the state average. St. Clair High School's theater group indeed is putting on Once Upon a Mattress, 5th through the 7th at the Performing Arts Center. It was also just shared with me this past week that Marine City will be staging Cinderella on May 1st and 2nd, so please put those dates on your calendar as well. Pink Halo indeed is this weekend for Coaches versus Cancer. Just so that folks are aware, JV games start at 2 o'clock and they will run boys, the 2 JV games, the varsity games through the rest of the day and evening. So St. Clair High School for those. This past week, we received 2 large boxes containing both purchased and handmade winter hats, scarves, and mittens with the following note included. We hope these hats, scarves, mittens, and gloves will be helpful this winter for those children who are unable to afford proper outdoor attire. All the members have contributed to the cause. Hopefully, we will have a better winter. Pastor Randy D'Alessandro, United Church of God, Birmingham, Michigan, care of Diane Stewart, Algonac, Michigan. On behalf of the board, community, and our students, I wanted to recognize and thank Pastor D'Alessandro and Ms. Stewart for their generosity and unsolicited donation. Finally, at the last Board of Education meeting, the issue of moving public comment to the end of the meeting was raised by a community member. That issue will be taken up by the board at their workshop Thursday night. Thank you.
Okay. Next item is the academic spotlight, and before we do get into that, anyone that is wishing to speak at the board meeting tonight, the green cards are back there on the table, so we would ask that you would fill one out if you want to speak.
Fall sports. Fall sports before academic spotlight.
Well, yes. We'll start everything now. Special recognitions is our fall athletic awards. First up, Mr. Ming, Marine City High School.
President Viewer, members of the board, thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. Dr. Skelka as well. Teams, athletes, when I call your name, if you could please come up to the front of the room and stand to be recognized. First, from our varsity football team, 2014 MAC Gold champions with a perfect 9-0 season. Dennis Fitzsimmons, all league, all area first team, all state. Jacob Headley, all league. Michael Lumley, all league. Jarrett Matheson, all league, all area first team, all state, MAC MVP, and the Times Herald Player of the Year. Alex Merchant, all league. Trevor Quant, all league. Kenton Rivard, all league, all area first team, all state. Head coach Ron Galowich, the MAC Gold Coach of the Year and the MHS FCA Region 17 Coach of the Year. From our boys varsity cross country team, Blake Haney, all league, all region. From our girls varsity cross country team, Sarah Cullimore, all region, all league. Kerrigan Spencer, all league, all region. Shane Rzuski, all league. From our varsity soccer team, Jacob Ryan, all league. Michael Polio, all league. Gerald Holloman, all league. Alejandro Menchaca, all league. From our varsity swim team, Alyssa Crampton, all region. Amber Johnston, all state, all area first team. From the varsity tennis team, Nicholas Flasher, all league. From varsity volleyball, Taylor Frank, all league, all area first team. Kirsten Austin, all league. Also, I'd like to put in a plug for our Friday night event kickoff, Pink Halo. It's something that Marine City started last year. St. Clair will be continuing this year. The staff game. It's a free event, taking donations at the door. So the staff of St. Clair High School will play the staff of Marine City High School, both teachers and coaches. That's Friday night at 7 p.m. at St. Clair High School.
I am Jeff Cook. I am the athletic director at St. Clair High School, as well as the assistant principal. Dr. Skelka, members of the board, here are our award recipients for fall 2014 at St. Clair High School. Varsity football Division IV playoff qualifier, Coach Bill Nesbitt. Our varsity girls swim team, Mac White dual meet champions, MHSAA 7 state team qualifiers. They placed 6th in the state finals. That's the highest finish ever in school history. They broke 4 school records in the 200 IM, the 200 free, the 500 free, the 200 free relay, and the 100 back, and set a deaf American swimming record in the 100 breaststroke. Most of those girls will be coming up here in a minute, so we'll just wait to introduce them one by one. From our varsity boys soccer team, they were recognized as MAC Gold Division Sportsmanship Award winners. Varsity boys tennis team, MAC Red Division Sportsmanship Award. The MHSAA Regional Champion, that's their 12th since the year 2000, and they've qualified for the state finals for the 17th straight year. For varsity boys cross country, Coach John Davidson was MHSAA state qualifier. That's the 15th year in a row, and it is also the longest streak in the state in Division II. Varsity girls cross country team had 2 state qualifiers. Gabrielle Morton was an individual regional champion, and Morgan Markle. Gabrielle Morton broke the school record with a time of 19:05. She is the first all-state runner from the girls program in school history. For our individual awards, unfortunately, Larry was in a non-critical car accident this afternoon, so he's not here, but he's okay. He was all-area and all-league. Larry O'Shadless. Grace Shinsky, all-league, all-area first team, all-state, state finals qualifier, state finals medalist, MAC White Division Swimmer of the Year, Times Herald Swimmer of the Year, runner-up in the 100 back at states. She broke 5 school records, the 200 IM, the 500 free, the 200 free, the 100 back, and the 100 fly. Grace is pretty fast in the water. Emily Lanin, all-league, all-area first team, state finals qualifier, and she broke the school record in the 200 free relay. Heidi Likens, all-league, all-area first team, all-state, state finals qualifier, and state finals medalist. Molly Likens, all-league, all-area first team, all-state, state finals qualifier, state finals medalist, and she is currently the deaf American swimming record in the 100 breaststroke. Alexis Smith, all-league, all-area first team, all-state, state finals qualifier, state finals medalist, and she broke the school record in the 200 free relay. Jenna Myers, all-league, all-area first team, state finals qualifier, and broke the school record in the 200 free relay. Taylor Westrick, all-league and state finals qualifier. Ben Al-Garabali in soccer, all-league, all-district, all-area first team. Nick Ball, soccer, all-league, all-district, all-area first team. Seth Pino, varsity tennis, all-league, all-area first team. Ryan Mabin, all-area first team. Sean McCormick, all-area first team. In cross country, Jack Keese, all-area first team and all-regional. Walker Child, all league, all area first team, all region. Gabrielle Morton, all league, all area first team, all region, and all state. Morgan Markle, all league, all area first team, and all region. Kara Likens in girls golf, the first season of girls golf at St. Clair High School. She was all area first team and was the regional champion. Thank you, members of the board, Dr. Skelka. These are our award recipients for fall 2014 at St. Clair High School.
Yeah, we all do.
We'll continue. Our extracurricular activities continue to amaze us time after time. To see that many people win awards in our school district, as small as we are compared to some of these people that they play against, is just phenomenal. So congratulations to everyone. Next item on the agenda is the school board member recognition, Mrs. Brenda Tenniswood.
Good evening, Dr. Skelka, Mr. Bewer, and members of the board. And alas, I do not come bearing all league, all team. Next year, I think we need to flip this. However, it is my sincere honor this evening to stand before you and acknowledge the commitment and extreme contributions of our Board of Education. As you may know, Governor Snyder has declared January 2015 as School Board Member Appreciation Month. We are extremely fortunate in East China School District to have an incredibly dedicated group of individuals serving as school board members for our community. Our board members serve without any compensation, working tirelessly on behalf of the district to make wonderful decisions with true dedication, especially while facing challenging times and difficult decisions. On behalf of the staff, students, community, and parents, I'd like to extend our most sincere appreciation to each one of you for your caring and dedicated service. And as you can see up on the screen, many of our board members have quite a long tenure with the district. Mr. Jim Bewer, 19 years, Glenn Kaningbauer, 4 years, Trustee Alan Richley, 4 years, Jeannie Frank, 2 years, Amy Murphy, 2 years, and we'd like to extend a very warm welcome to our newest trustees, Pat Biebuck and Todd Distelrath. And so as a small token of our very deep gratitude and esteem, a book has been donated in your honor for each of our school media centers, and I noticed you were flipping through them, so they're really awesome books. So thank you again for all your service. It is greatly appreciated.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is our academic spotlight. Marine City Middle and High School, principals Mrs. Catherine Woolman and Mrs. Susan Sebula.
Good evening, Dr. Skalka, members of the board. So I'm very excited to be here tonight to give you an update on our first year as a campus and give you a little insight into some of the work that we've been doing collaborating together. Some of the things that we've been able to do as a result of being on a shared campus and on a shared schedule this year is allow some more flexibility with our students and their scheduling. The two departments that we've been able to do the most with is world language and performing arts. So instead of our 8th graders having to choose, that 1 hour that we offer Spanish at the middle school, they've been able to work Spanish into their schedule almost any hour of the day that is offered on the campus. So they have more flexibility to participate in fine arts as well. The other piece is with performing arts. Because of our size, sometimes students get locked in their schedules. What we've been able to do is students who maybe couldn't participate in choir first hour because it conflicted with their Spanish or their algebra or something else, they've been able to audition for high school choirs. And so now we have 8th grade students for the first time participating in advanced performing arts classes at the high school. So we're very excited about that. Some of the other things that our students have been able to do is they've been able to collaborate academically. So our STEM classes have been able to work together on some hands-on projects. As we're going to touch base on in just a few minutes, our computer classes have been able to do some projects together. So we're very excited to see our students working together. With athletics, we've been able to do some things where our teams have worked together to share facilities and to do some mentoring with the high school athletes coming down to work with the middle school students. That's something that we've not always been able to do because of the time, so this is a wonderful new opportunity. And again, with the arts, our high school, whether it be band, choir, or visual arts, they've been working together. I think we've done the most under Mr. Fox with the music. The high school students have been coming after school and mentoring small groups, so they've been practicing their instruments all over the hallway. Lots and lots of noise, but you might have your brass instruments right outside the office, and then some of your other ones throughout the hallway. So we've seen a lot of mentoring going on that we haven't seen before. And finally, our staffs have been able to collaborate a couple times a month on curriculum and even on the mentoring. So we've been able to talk a lot about, who did we send them as freshmen? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? How can they best help them right from day one? And we're excited to continue that work as the years continue. So what are the benefits of our students working together, learning together? Why is this a good thing for our kids? Some of the things that, as we know from research and then we're finding as we talk to them, is it's good for our students to work with students who are older or younger to get a better understanding of how other people think, a different viewpoint. Sometimes our students become very focused on their own little world, and so we can expand those horizons in a positive way. It helps them to take ownership, particularly the older students, when they're mentoring a younger student, they really take ownership of what they're sharing with them. We've seen, it's funny when you watch the students in the band in the hallway after school, you can see who your future educators are going to be. Some of them are there with their hands on their hips. There's other ones who are on the ground. They all take a different approach, but you can see them growing as little tiny leaders. And it's interesting the feedback that they give each other. Particularly as I watch the middle school students, they pay so much attention to the feedback that they get from the older students. I could tell them the same thing. I could say it in my nicest voice 100 times, and they're not going to listen like they're going to listen to that senior who's standing there telling them the same thing, because they're buying into them more. They relate to them more. So the feedback has been very beneficial to our students. And so tonight we're going to talk to you a little bit about a unit that our 8th grade computer teacher, Kelly Thomas, and our multimedia teacher at the high school, Kathy Richley, developed together for our students to collaborate on gaming. This is something that's new to our curriculum this year. There's a lot of software out there that our students can use for free that allows them to get some basic skills with creating games. This is becoming a new thing. When I learned typing back in the day, it was with my typewriter, stickers on the keys. You were timed, and God forbid you peel those stickers. Now, they're building games and they're learning these same skills in a way where they earn badges and rewards and much more exciting than my typewriter of old. And so they're going to tell you a little bit about what they've done with the students and how they've worked together to get some 21st century skills.
Thank you. I teach at the high school. Like Mrs. Woolman said, I teach multimedia computers. And back in October, my class did a unit with Scratch, which is basic computer programming. And at the end of the unit, they had to make a computer game. So it's with that computer game that our unit started. So Kelly and I met, we came up with a schedule of how to incorporate our two classes together, and the schedule's up there on the board. We started, Kelly brought her students over to my classroom, and my students pulled all their games up on the computer, and we allowed Kelly's students to play my students' computer games. They thought that was a great idea because they got to play games for the hour. So about every 5 minutes, they had to switch to a different game so that they could see a different game that a different student had made. The object of this was, one, for my students to showcase their games, but two, for Kelly's classes to see what was possible, what you could make. And my class had made a variety of games, and as they moved around, they got to see a variety of different games, and they learned by playing games and having fun.
Our next step in this project was we went back to the middle school. My class took a couple days to map out or storyboard what they wanted their games to be. After seeing Mrs. Richley's students, they had a lot of different ideas in their head, and they got to storyboard and plan out what they wanted their games to look like when they got done with it. We took a couple days also to actually start making the games, and then we went back to Mrs. Richley's class.
So when they came back to my class this time, they had played games, they had made a storyboard, they had thought about what kind of games they wanted to make, but then my class sat with them one-on-one and started to offer some instruction. What my class's responsibility was is they taught them how to make a character in the computer game from scratch. Scratch was the program. They taught them how to make a character. Then my class taught them how to make the character move. By the end of the day, they had to teach them how to make a character and how to make that character dance to the beat of music. And it was a lot of fun. There were a lot of laughs, trying to get this little character to dance. And they had to draw this all freehand in this computer program. So then Kelly's class went back.
We took one more day to finalize after our help day with Mrs. Richley's class. We took one more day to finalize our games, and then we had our final day was we were playing each other's games. They evaluated each other's games, and we were able to kind of see what worked, what didn't work, and whose games they liked, what they did and did not like about the games, and they submitted their final projects. We have up here a couple quotes. The first two quotes were from Mrs. Richley's multimedia students, and then the last quote was from one of my 8th grade girls about collaborating on this project. And then our last day was competition and celebration.
Any questions for us? Okay.
How many total students participated in the program?
I had 20.
I had 21.
So about 40.
A little over 40 students total.
40 students. Are any of these going to be going, we're going to see them on TV with the Sharks for some new game they developed?
I have a couple.
Time will tell.
I told them to keep me in mind.
Fantastic.
I have
Yes,
a
Mrs.
question
Bieber.
or just a comment. The competition, what was involved in that?
That was just playing each other's games, the competitions, and kind of voting on what ones they liked the best.
The kids, the students
Yes.
voted on?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. They got to go around and play each other's. They had an evaluation sheet that they used too.
All right. Great idea, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Westerhoff, would you prop our back doors open, please? Thank you. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. Approval is in order for approval of minutes, regular board meeting of education, meeting December 15th, 2014, approval of payment of bills, financial statements, schedule of investments, recall of teacher. Motion needed?
If I may pull the minutes off of the consent agenda to have a revision.
Actually, you don't pull them off the consent agenda. You just ask for them to be revised as part of the consent agenda. And then read your revision.
Okay, and so I would like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the following revision to the meeting minutes, which you all have in front of you. And it would be, the revision would be under, it's on page 11, and it would be between it would be under the second, or excuse me, the first, I guess you'd say that's like a tick mark, or tab. It says richly responded with saying he does not serve the superintendent or the president of the board, rather the people. He asked where in policy it states that he reports to the superintendent. Richley said he felt he was being targeted, bullied, and that the censure was for revenge. He stated he missed the committee meetings due to his work schedule, and then in parentheses, his meetings were at 4:15, and the two regular meetings due to military training / professional development. That's the end of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion is in order to accept the amended consent agenda.
That was the motion. That was the motion.
You move to,
Yep.
to
Okay.
amend the minutes that way.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
You need a second.
second.
I'll support.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. So carried. Next item on our agenda is recognition of persons wishing to address the board. I have one card. Mr. Eric Longuski, School Board Appreciation.
I expected more cards than that. My name is Eric Longuski. I am the East China Education Association president, and tonight I'm speaking in that capacity. First thing I'd like to do is welcome Mrs. Pat Bebuck and Mr. Todd Distelrath to the school board. Welcome. And I'm speaking on our unit on behalf of School Board Appreciation Month. And we'd just like to express our thanks for what you do. It is quite often a thankless job. It is something that I've been familiar with my whole life. As I mentioned before here, my dad was a school board member for 24 years, and I watched him leave at night, once a month, twice a month, whatever was going on, he went up there, and I had a lot of respect for that. Peck was a small school, but it's your school, and he took a lot of pride in that, as I think a lot of people here tonight do also. And so I commend you for that. As was mentioned earlier, your pay, there is none. There's no mileage. You do it for the good of the people, which honestly makes me question you a little bit, because why would you do that, okay? It's a little over the top. But anyway, on their behalf, I do want to say we sincerely appreciate what you do. And we have an idea that now is not so original. We've done this in the past, but on your behalf, we are going to ask you to pick out a book. I'm going to send the contact information to you tomorrow through the school email site. I think you all get that, correct? Mm-hmm. It's kind of a general site. And I want you to pick out a book that you want to have inscribed by yourself. We'll send the information back to me. I'll have the books ordered. We'll have Karen Cedar, the vice president, will order those. We'll have you inscribe it, and we'll have you choose the school you would like your book to go to. So you can kind of choose your favorite. And I hate to do this to you, but if by chance you choose a school where your book ends up closing, we will move your book for you, so don't you worry, okay? So you don't have to tip your hand where you're putting your book. There's no hidden meaning if you don't choose a certain school, so don't worry about that. So anyway, sincerely though, we do appreciate what you do. It is, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of time away from your families, as I experienced firsthand. And so on behalf of all the teachers of East China, though we may sometimes find ourselves on opposite sides of issues, and there may be controversial issues coming up in the future. I'm just guessing, it's possible. Okay, there may be something. And if that does happen, we've always worked well as a team. As long as I've been here, we've always had your support. You've always had ours. That'll continue. We'll work through our problems as we need to do so. But we appreciate all you do. Sincerely, we do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is the reports. Superintendent report, state ballot proposal.
Thank you, President Bewer. I wanted to briefly touch upon the May ballot proposal that was approved at the very, very tail end of the lame duck session at the end of December. Specifically, the Free Press indicated that one of the aspects that's important to us is that protection of funding for schools and local governments. And we received much of the money that was formerly raised from the sales tax and fuel sales. Officials said the plan would actually increase school funding by $300 million a year. And again, importantly, universities could no longer be funded through the school aid fund, though community colleges could be. If we were to, I have talked with a couple of the architects of Proposal A that was passed back in 1994. One of them is local right here, then Senate Majority Leader Dan DeGrow. When Proposal A was passed, no one ever thought that they would divert money from the K-12 school fund, state school aid fund, to colleges and universities. And so therefore, they did not put that specifically in the law, and yet lo and behold, that has started to take place under the Granholm administration and has continued to date. So this would actually protect that K-12 school aid money from the four-year universities, although it would be able to be going to the community colleges, which I think is consistent with what Governor Snyder has been proposing, and that is a P20 concept. In other words, preschool through community college. The state legislature over the last couple of years has allocated a great deal of money to what is referred to as the Great Start Readiness Program, or four-year-old preschool programming. We believe strongly in GSRP and have expanded our offerings here in East China from a single half-day section to 2 full-day sections for 4-year-olds in our community. And we know that students with a preschool experience are just that much more ready to participate in kindergarten. So preschool experience through a community college experience pretty much is going to become the norm, so that once was K-12, I think we'll be referring to P20 for the near future. Detroit News expounded on that $300 million estimate by just dividing it by the number of students in the state, and said that could work out to be $200 per student for the state's public schools. And in your board packet, I provided you the House Fiscal Agency's legislative analysis so that you in turn could become a little bit more knowledgeable in the proposal and how it will work. First, though, I think it's important to understand that it has to pass for there to be any additional monies for school or for the existing monies to be protected in the State School Aid Act. And I want to make sure that we all remember that prior to this bargain being reached, as I said, in lame duck there by the Senate and the House, there was a proposal on the table that actually didn't protect school funds, didn't add to school funds, but took money from the State School Aid Act in order to repair roads. And so if it doesn't pass, roads are still going to be an issue, and I would think that those talks would begin again, and we certainly hope that's not the case. Passage is far from a done deal. If you are a bit of a state government wonk or geek or whatever you want to use the phrase, you probably watch Off the Record on Friday nights with Tim Skubic, and they talked at length one episode regarding just what the campaign will be like. We raised a very, very small amount of money for yard sales for our bus proposal, but we needed at least a little bit of money for yard signs, not yard sales, excuse me, yard signs, yard signs, promotional handouts and flyers and things like that. That is, I won't even say a drop in the bucket, because the reality is we're talking the potential of millions of dollars going to be poured into commercials and materials on both sides for this campaign. This will be a big deal. In the event the proposal passes and we reduce 3 teaching positions that we've talked about, that's just via the projected loss in enrollment. Best case scenario says that if we truly were to receive $200 per student times a projected 4,260 students, that could mean an extra $850,000 to the district. That would reduce our deficit to $340,000. Worst case, of course, is that we lose 143 students, which we've shared with you before. Those are the 2 scenarios with which we're working. That would reduce, of course, our number of students by which we could apply the $200 to. So we'd have fewer students, less revenue, and a larger deficit. My point of showing this, though, is to understand that as important as it is for us to work toward passing this measure, not just for the infrastructure of the state, but for the school funding, it doesn't completely reduce and eliminate our deficit. There is still going to be work to do, and as we'll talk about tonight and into future meetings.
Was the worst case 143 less students and no $200?
No, there's the $200 in that second line. It's just we're applying the $200 a student.
So that's not the worst. The worst would be 143 and 200.
The worst is taking that 1.9 and only subtracting off the 240.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm trying to be optimistic. And maybe I'm naive, but I'm not. We're going to pass this thing. Couple caveats, though, to thinking about if the proposal passes. There are still questions that are going to have to be answered. How soon will the 1 cent sales tax increase go into effect? Would the suggested per pupil increase be included in next year's state aid, or would they wait until they've collected that 1 penny for a period of time so that it doesn't actually go into effect maybe until the 16-17 school year? How will the legislature decide to distribute the money? So far, all we have seen is articles such as the Free Press or Detroit News that spoke to just 2 figures, $300 million and $200 per student. But we know that when the foundation grant has been increased in recent years, they have not increased it in a uniform nature. Usually they've increased it on what's been called a 2x or a 2 times formula. And in fact, that got exaggerated to a 3.5 multiplier this past year, in which the East China School District saw a $50 increase versus $175 for most districts across the state. So if it's not a uniform $200, there's still probably the possibility that we'd be on the low end of any increase, as they are still looking to try to equate school funding across the state, across all districts. And finally, I'm not that naive. In fact, sometimes I'm a little bit too pessimistic. When the state lottery went into effect, we know that that money was earmarked legislatively for school funding. It raised $500 million. And then the legislature turned around and took $500 million from the general fund out of the State School Aid Act. So in a sense, it was a wash. There was no new monies for school. So if I want to be very pessimistic, I could say, will the $300 million be additional monies, or will it just be different monies? I'm going to, again, be optimistic. I'm going to say that it's new monies because of the manner in which they will be campaigning for this, both in order to repair infrastructure and to support schools. So the proposal has to pass, but as you can see just from this little brief bit of information I'm sharing with you tonight, it does not completely solve it. We can't just rely and say, let's all just wait and see what happens in May. To do so would be a huge gamble, plus it wouldn't completely solve our current budget deficit. But it does help an extremely, a great deal. And so we do need to work hard to support it and get out the information as we become aware of it. Questions at all? I don't have a heck of a lot more information, but we can try, if anybody. Okay, I'd like to then jump to the second part of my report, and that is Neola, which is the service that we subscribe to that keeps our school policies up to date. Our legislature, as you saw in lame duck, was busy doing not just roads, but passing many other bills and passing, and that's not just at the state level, but it's at the federal level as well. So, based on new or revised legislation and regulations, we have received 2 updates from Neola recommending policy changes since completing our year-long review and revision. Next month, you're going to have a discussion and an action item to approve the recommended changes, which I provided you electronically in your board packets. Your board packet didn't have the hard copies because just for Channel 6 and our audience purposes, these are the changes in just 2 updates from your lawmakers at work. Okay. So if you have an opportunity to take a look through them, we'll have discussion and approval next month. They really fall pretty much, there's a lot of the same thing in there if you've taken a look at it, because there's issues around discrimination in health plans, and those things happen for all the different employee groups, and each employee group is often in a different section, so it's repeated multiple times. So that's some of that stuff. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Dr. Skalka. Item 10 on the agenda is information discussion items, restructuring committee update. Mr. Rob Luther. Welcome back.
Thank you. Welcome to the new board members, Dr. Skalka, President Buer. I will be sharing an update this evening in regards to the restructuring committee and the work that we've done since we've started back again as our new group. As a reminder, all of the information can be found on the district website under the committee meeting minutes. So if you don't mind, I have a little to share. At the December 8th special meeting of the Board of Education, the School Closure Committee presented a report that completed its work in that it identified a scenario in which an elementary school could be closed and its students relocated to other elementary facilities consistent with board action to close an elementary school for the 2015-2016 school year taken at its September 8th special meeting. At this same December 8th special meeting, the Board of Education asked the School Closure Committee to continue to meet as a district restructuring committee to look beyond the 2015 and 16 school year and provide recommendations regarding how the elementary school closing might fit with further facility decisions that may have to be taken in the future, along with what those future facility decisions may be. As a group, the committee has welcomed 10 additional new members and has met twice, January the 13th and the 20th. We take seriously the task given us by the board and want to repeat it once again. Number 1, to consider how the closing of elementary school for the 2015-16 school year may impact further facility decisions. And number 2, consider what those future facility decisions may be. The recommendation to close an elementary school, including closing Gearing Elementary, moving kindergarten through 4th grade to Eddy Elementary, 5th grade to St. Clair Middle School, and the early childhood and lower elementary cognitively impaired programs to Pine River. With respect to how this may impact further facility decisions, the committee explored a suggestion from the board as to whether a 4-7 middle school and an 8-12 high school configuration would be possible, not only into the future, but something to consider for the next school year. Over the course of the 2 meetings, considerable discussion was had, including a review of current classroom usage at the secondary buildings and how the addition of 8th grade or 5 graduating classes in the building would impact core and non-core instructional programs and offerings. It was determined at current enrollment levels there would not be sufficient classroom space to teach classes without creating several internet teaching positions and a significant lack of gymnasium space to teach physical education and hold interscholastic practices. Just as importantly, no additional savings would be created from implementing a grade configuration such as this at this time. The second task for the committee is to discuss facility needs in the future. Armed with enrollment projections that show continued loss of enrollment, we believed it was our responsibility to have a discussion about the pros and cons of continuing to operate 2 middle schools and 2 high schools. On behalf of the committee, there has only been initial conversation, number 1, to identify at what point in the future enrollment would make such a move possible, and number 2, if possible, to begin to identify the many issues related to such an idea. And at no time did the committee consider a single high school or middle school a possibility for next year, and in fact, as I just said, hasn't had enough discussion yet to even come up to a conclusion as to when it might make sense. But if the idea is one that the board does not want the committee to consider at this time, then we would ask, then it would be best to have you let us know. That's all I have to report. Any questions?
Questions?
So just to be clear, in your investigation since the December 8th meeting, have you found anything counter to the scenario that we looked at in closing an elementary school?
In regards to looking at anything else that would make sense to save us any more money than we discussed, no, we have not.
Trustee Richley?
I have a question about, because I recall that I was the one that made the motion to create the committee for choosing which elementary school to close. And I don't know if I don't recall that there was something from the board directly to change the committee structure or anything like that. So I think that's something that should come from the board. I think there should be some sort of a motion tonight in that regard, changing the committee if that's the case.
In my recollection of what took place in December when the committee provided its report, the board asked the committee would it be willing to continue so that it could examine whether or not such a move would indeed be consistent with any future facility moves that may need to take place. And if so, what those future moves might be. That's the purpose of renaming it and calling it a restructuring committee, was to take a look at it in the larger context of just the elementary schools. As I think it was stated somewhere that though an elementary problem now, it'll eventually become a secondary problem. So I think it's fair in what you're saying in that, and what Mr. Luther has said, it's fair at this point in time to tell the committee that as Mr. Luther asked, if the group is not to consider the secondaries at this point in time, let them know that so that they can focus their efforts on trying to implement an elementary solution.
Right, and I think that what we need to do, because right now we have a problem now with the budget, it's not 3 years out, it's within the next couple of years that we're gonna be dealing with that, and if we're not gonna do it the next school year, or the next school year, or the next school year after that, I think it's a waste of time to currently look at that right now, when we have a problem now, and I think that that's what we've gotta focus on. I mean, that's my 2 cents of it.
I believe that the group has been looking at what can be done now, and also was asked what can be done in the context of what's to come. But if we want to focus on now, then they need that direction.
I think we should give it to them.
You're talking the direction of the now aspect of it. Yes, in follow-up with Dr. Skalkas in December, we did then talk with Mr. Luther about adding the additional 10 to 12 people onto the committee, so we were including middle school, high school staff, and parents in the community. We did give the direction at that point as a restructuring committee. But other feelings from the board as to, now?
I disagree it's a waste of time to look at, a long-term plan, but I agree that we're going to need more than a long-term plan to address, so far we've only saved, $300,000 if we were to implement the gearing idea. So we need additional either cost savings or revenue. So I agree that we need to look at those ideas, but I disagree that not continuing with the long-term planning. I think both need to occur.
If we continued to discuss long-term, I mean, how long are we gonna keep this committee together to go over it? When our original idea was to sit down and figure out what elementary school to close, they came to us with a suggestion, are we just gonna keep this going for?
Again, I believe in November, the charge to the group, or sorry, in December, the charge to the group was to take a look at how this action might impact further moves down the road, with the idea being that I was asked specifically how much time the administration would need in order to implement a decision. I responded that we could not wait beyond spring break. We could not wait beyond the March meeting. And the March meeting was in many ways ideal because it provided us kindergarten roundup numbers, which we talked about as being it has been a reliable predictor of fall enrollment because it has traditionally been about 70% of the people who 70% of the eventual kindergarten enrollment turns out to sign up at kindergarten roundup. This year, unfortunately, that 70% was 240 kids as opposed to 280 to 300. So again, we've talked about this, I think, a couple of times here at the board meeting to say, is that a blip? Is that a one-year occurrence?
I agree, I know that we have, but I don't,
So,
my personal feelings on this is I don't think our numbers justify even worrying about secondary configurations. I mean, unless we have a drastic drop of 1,000 kids.
and that's fine. That's kind of the direction that I think folks are looking for tonight. Because obviously the firestorm that was created, we don't want to continue that. We wanted to make sure that people understood clearly from tonight that that there was no consideration of doing this next year. In fact, there wasn't even discussion amongst the people and the committee as to when. They were trying to figure out, they were having discussions as to when it might make sense into the future, as I believe they were charged with trying to say, what does the future look like?
Nobody has a magic ball, so we don't know.
Correct, absolutely.
The projection numbers, what we're looking at, are coming from the from the bond issue, from the study that was done, that they're looking at the next 6 years, 100 students less. So you're correct. We're not going to have a giant decline in 1 year that would cause us to look at that happen in the next 2-3 years.
I think it's important for maybe those in attendance and those who watch. They saw the little presentation about the May ballot election, in which we had what was a fairly large swing of best case and worst case, 70 student loss versus 140 student loss. And you say, well, can't you come up with a figure that isn't so wide in variance? Well, the 70 comes from, as President Bewer talks about, the enrollment projections that we had to obtain from a private company for the November ballot proposal. That enrollment projection says that we will be down 70 students next year. That's based on what they see as county birth rates and job creation and things like that. The 140 number comes as a result of, if our kindergarten class is the same this coming year as it is this current year, and you subtract that number from the outgoing seniors, then there's 140 difference. Right? So it's pretty fair to say it's going to be somewhere in there, and we're hoping, by all means, we're hoping that we don't have that small of a kindergarten group again. But if we do, they're not even close. They're 140 less than our outgoing seniors.
But also in this year, did we not sort of budget for a negative 100 students and we ended up with a negative 121? Or something
That's
right
approximately
around there?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Mr. Richardson?
oh, sorry.
That's okay. I just wanted to, the first question I have is, when are we going to vote on the committee's original recommendation? Like what's the time frame to vote on that? Because I've had parents asking me, when are we gonna know what school our kid's gonna go to and things like that, so
Again, we've stated that there needs to be action taken by the March meeting to provide us time to do that. Now, if we take action in the February meeting without the kindergarten roundup numbers, and they come in dramatically different,
okay, that's what you're talking about.
Then
Okay.
than what they are currently, then that might impact greatly the decision that was made in February. A way to approach this is to take action in February with contingencies for different numbers that kindergarten roundup show.
Okay.
Mr. Bueller.
Mr. Kennedy.
If, to that, if there was some drastic change, we could make a change. We're not etching in stone.
Absolutely.
We're making policy, and we can change policy.
Sure, absolutely.
And to Mr. Luther's question and some discussion, I view it as that the first part of the group that the committee was charged with was the strategic portion. Can we close a school and save money? And I think that question's been answered. And I'm never against looking at as far down the road as we can as some of these start going, but I think a key part that I'd like to see the committee focus on now is the tactical portion of carrying out the closing of an elementary school. And I think I would like to move on it no later than February.
I agree.
Because we're getting into now, as we've seen recently, starting to get more and more, starting to get distracted from what we were doing.
Nope, understand. With that being said, could we, move to have you put together some of those contingent numbers that
Absolutely.
we're thinking about, and give them to us in time that we can kind of digest them and look at them?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I would like to see it as an action item on the school closing with a recommendation on the February ballot, or excuse me, February agenda.
One last thing.
Yes.
On the direction of the board, I'm confused because I heard like 4 different things, and I would suggest that we make some sort of a motion as to the direction of the committee so that they know, so that the public knows, so that everybody knows where we stand, so that they can, so that it's not confusing, I guess. That would be my suggestion.
Well, we're still discussing it, I think.
Right.
And I think if you can clarify direction without having to actually make a motion and vote. The direction that I'm hearing being stated by members of the board is for the February meeting, having between now and the February meeting, that the committee, along with the administration, work out the details
Of the original.
Of the original report.
Okay.
How that would work, and what the ramifications would be if kindergarten enrollment came in at 10 kids more, 20 kids more, those kind of things, where those kids would be, how that might work out, all right? So that, in turn, the board could indeed take action in February, either to approve or not approve.
Okay.
What's on the table.
Thank you.
Mrs. Frank.
I would just like to say that as far as the secondary goes, while I'm open to always looking towards the future, I also strongly feel that we have enough facilities that I don't think combining high schools and middle schools is really necessary in the near future. I strongly feel like our two diverse communities need those individual high schools and middle schools. I think it's very important to the community, and I would really like to find a way, you know, to tighten our belts without having to make that drastic of a change.
I think what brought that on, just from my recollection, is from the bus proposal, when this board in the past has looked at 2017-18. That was sort of our number year that we were going to, that pupil reduction was going to stop, that it was going to turn around. We were looking at St. Clair County birth rates and so forth, and new job opportunities. So that's where our 17-18 thing came from. Opened our eyes a little bit more when we had to do this bus thing, and they're saying, oh no, that's going to go out to 2021 with another 100 kids each year. I think that's what caused us to, you know, take a farther look out. But I agree with you. I don't think that that action would come till we truly lost those 600 plus students.
That'd have to be pretty drastic,
It's
in
gonna
my
have to be a drastic
feeling.
number. Absolutely, absolutely. I agree.
And
Yes.
arguably 10 years ago when our enrollment was increasing, I'm
Right.
sure they didn't see it dropping off either. So
No, no.
it can go up or down or all around. So I think that it's a good thing to look at and consider, but I think at this point in time, you know, we just need to focus on what the reality is, and but thank you.
Mr. Luther, how many meetings are left on your schedule?
I don't have my 300-pound binder with me this evening, so I can't, I don't know that, I think we have until March.
I have it here.
Okay.
2 in February, 2 in March.
Yeah, 4.
I think we can just,
And it might not be necessary to meet in March. What I anticipate occurring is that the administration doing the work necessary to try to put together the nuts and bolts, if you will, of an implementation plan, with the committee now working as more a sounding board and advisory group to say, have you thought about, and yes, that makes sense, and that doesn't make sense. Try to bounce those ideas off of them prior to getting it here so that we have vetted those plans to the best of our ability.
And though I don't speak for everyone on the committee, I am happy to say that we'll go right to work when we appreciate the direction. Thank you.
thank you. One more thing to say. Along with that, we're still going to look at, looking at the boundary lines so that those students that we've identified before in that particular pocket will then
That
be
would-
included in that work.
That work, right. Because that would be, I would consider that as
That should all
Mis-
occur at the
as a
same time.
tactical move.
Okay,
in
so
moving
everybody
forward.
got that on the record? Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion on this topic?
Do we have any other interest in that committee? I know another part of that committee that didn't really take off, but just other ideas as far as expanding programs and those kinds of things. You know, just brainstorming. Do we have any interest in that committee? You know, looking at programming and things to attract students to the district, that kind of an idea, or do we want to just narrow them on this task and be done with it?
That was my thought. We've been talking about marketing, Mr. Richley's comments and so forth. If the committee is willing, let's take our March and let's get their ideas on what classes, what additional things we need to, you know, we're adding the STEM program and what other additional things they feel we need to attract and how to market our district. Does that sound?
I think that's a great idea.
So instead of disbanding it in February, let's propose March as our marketing arm for the board. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lewin. Next item on our agenda is our board action agenda items. As per recommendation of the administration, the board adopt the 2014-15 general fund cafeteria latchkey budget at the function level as revised and presented at its December 15th, 2014 meeting. Motion needed.
So moved.
Move Mr. Kennegbauer, support.
Support.
Mrs. Frank, comments, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Item 2, recommendation, action. Per administration recommendation, the board approved the St. Clair High School, Marine City High School Spring 2016 Europe trip. Motion needed.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Frank.
Support.
Support by Mrs. Murphy. Comments or questions?
I kind of have a question. Have they started on this? Do we know anything that's what they're
They're-
doing for the fundraising?
They have had meetings of both schools, advertised meetings of both schools for those who are interested. I will say that I know that Marine City High School is also pursuing the option of a cheaper, less expensive, less expensive, that's what I want to say, a less expensive trip, probably more toward the Dominican for a Spanish experience, something in that area. But that too would be both schools able to participate. So I'm
I mean, actual fundraising, have they started the fundraising
Yeah.
ideas? Okay.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Recommendation, action per administration recommendation. The board approved the participation in the 2014-15 Michigan School Business Officials Bus Purchase Program as presented at its December 15th, 2014 meeting. Motion needed.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kennegbauer.
Support. Oh, sorry.
Support, Mr. Richley. Comments or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Recommendation, action per administration recommendation. The board approved the modification of the world language graduation requirement of 2.0 credits to 1.0 credit as discussed at the December 15th, 2014 board meeting. Motion needed.
Support.
Moved by Mrs. Bebock, support by Mr. Richley. Comments or questions?
I do have a comment because I talked to Mrs. Woolman before the meeting. I just wanted to make sure because I know sometimes when we change graduation requirements, we start it with the incoming 9th grade. And so I wanted clarification on this, and she said that this would start immediately. So doesn't have to wait for the current 8th graders coming into the 9th grade. So our current 9th graders can take advantage of this. Anybody that's only had 1 year of their foreign language requirements. So.
Great. And that is in conjunction with the regulations coming down from the state? They've been
Absolutely.
started that early?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Fantastic.
And remember, it is done in order to provide greater options for students,
Right.
especially those wanting to attend the tech center.
Right. Just want to make sure we weren't jumping the gun, that they had set guidelines as to what year we could start. Okay, great. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Last item is items for our next board meeting, board calendar, East China Education Foundation grant winners. With that, we stand adjourned. Thank you so much.